Hello and welcome to day 3 of Whiskey Advent 2020. I'm Chantel.
I'm Blake.
We love whiskey.
Yum.
So day 3, we have chosen for us one of two local distilleries that we're featuring. This one is a small artisan distillery in Missouri. It's outside of Branson, way out in the country in the Ozarks. We've been there on a couple of occasions.
This place is literally in the middle of nowhere. It's got just a single little pot still in the basement, essentially. It's got a bar that's ready to go, small. It has a little food truck, some live music occasionally, but it is literally out in the middle of nowhere.
And I think they have, 2.5 employees or something along those lines.
Yeah.
We took a little tour the first time. We really enjoyed it. We really enjoyed the flavor of their product, if you will. They do whiskey. They do moonshine, which is unaged whiskey, essentially.
Or White Dog, or any other Mountain Dew, any other name that you want to call it.
And they do rum, and they also do bourbon. Now, the first time we visited, they had not yet gotten to bourbon, and I don't recall whether it was still aging or they hadn't even started it yet. So the one we're featuring here is the malted barley whiskey. As we talked about yesterday, bourbon, mostly corn, with sometimes different grains as well. This one is mostly malted barley. It does have corn in it, and they've also added some port into the mix as well. So you will pick up on those flavors. Shall we taste?
Yes.
No, wait. We shall sniff.
Yes. Now, why do you like this whiskey? And why do you like this distillery?
Well, it's not expensive. It tastes good.
It tastes really good.
Because what you really pick up, at least on this malted barley one, is the barley, is that cereal forward graininess.
The note that I get when I immediately smell is Bananas Foster, and I love this whiskey because of that. It's so distinct, and there's only a few other whiskeys that have that. And since this is mostly malted barley, it's more like a Scotch than a bourbon or a rye. But you don't get that just hit you in the mouth Bananas Foster flavor that I get when I taste this. Some other ones that I really like is a distillery called Few in Chicago. They make an American single malt that is very similar to this, and that's why I like it a lot as well, just because it reminds me of that one, and that one's very good as well. There's one more that I really like that's an American single malt that has that Bananas Foster's note. What else are you getting on the nose?
I'm definitely I'm getting hints of that port, kind of that fruitiness from the pour, along with that toasted, like fresh
toasted.
baked.
That's a great word for what you get on the nose.
Toasted
marshmallow.
Bread.
I'm getting a lot of marshmallow, just maybe buried deep in there.
I don't know, but I'm gonna go ahead and taste.
Taste.
You ready to taste? Now that you mentioned it's similar to a Scotch,
Yes.
I have not noticed that on previous times drinking this. I'm like, oh wow, I can see that, I can taste that.
Now, I made the distinction of comparing it to the Few American single malt. This is not an American single malt because it has the corn in it and because it has the port in it, but it is very barley forward, very malted barley forward, so it is more like an American single malt than many other things, and it's just damn good, honestly.
And if you've ever, in your childhood or adult life, eaten grape nuts, this is like grape nuts whiskey.
A lot of cereal.
Just not crunchy.
Not a lot of Kentucky Hug. This is only 40%, 80 proof.
80 proof.
It is. I love it, even though it's sitting at that proof. It really is delicious. It's, again, this is our first week, and we're kind of building up to something, but the complexity is not there. But it is more so than the previous two whiskeys we've tried, and it's just an incredible value. It's like a hidden gem for me, and I buy this as gifts, and I buy it for having around, and it's really good.
And I also get sort of a molasses type Boston brown bread, if you're familiar with that. I'm from the north, so it's this bread typically made in a can, and it's brown. It must be made from some really dark grain. I don't know, maybe it's barley or something, and it's got molasses in it. So it's got that same sweetness and cereal flavor that this has.
That is one thing I love about whiskey, and just tasting different whiskeys, is the nostalgia and the things that it can bring out in your memory. And a lot of times where you take a sip and you're like, what is that? I know what it is, but it's not quite, coming to my brain, coming to my thoughts, and then it hits you, and it kind of just makes you like, enjoy the whiskey a little bit more.
Yeah.
What are
It's
you getting
an experience.
Yes. What are you getting on the finish?
Port, honestly. I'm getting that sweet, lightly fruity finish.
I'm getting a light tang on the finish that's lingering there for a minute. There's no Kentucky hug really at 40%, which would be expected. This is what I would consider kind of the best table wine for whiskey that you can get. And
It's only what, $30?
it's only $30. It really is spectacular in its punch of flavor. Not as much of the linger, not as much of the oiliness in your mouth.
It's a little numbing.
It's a little numbing
on the mouth.
But there's not a spice. There's not anything that's lingering and giving you different flavors at the end. But I absolutely love it, and it is fantastic.
And for being only 80 proof, it has flavor.
Yes.
After drinking whiskey for a while, if sometimes we drink a lower proof one, my first comment is, it tastes like water. Because there's not as much flavor sometimes in lower proof whiskeys. But despite this, it really does have flavor. Yeah.
And we have some of their other whiskeys as well, and we've not ventured into them too much.
This
one's not even open, but this is their small batch whiskey. This is also only 80 proof. And you can tell, like, this is a real small operation. They got simple labels, simple bottles. There's not much more going on than just the whiskey here. Give them a tour, when you get into the Branson area. And then they've got their single barrel bourbon. It's at 47.5%, so it's a little higher up there. I tasted this one last night. It's really pretty good.
And it's 3 years aged.
It's very corn forward, and it's pretty fantastic, honestly. So the stuff coming out of this little podunk place in Missouri is really pretty great, and we love it. And go take a visit. Yes, go take a visit.